The Billionaire's Unexpected Invitation. A Cinderella Story in the Making. Hook. Amelia, would you do me the honor of accompanying me to the annual charity gala? Alexander Vance's question hung in the air, leaving his assistant utterly stunned. She stared at him, adjusting her glasses as if she hadn't heard correctly. "Excuse me, Mr. Vance, are you inviting me?" asked Amelia Davies, the always efficient but seemingly invisible personal assistant to the tech magnate. "Yes, you. I have no one to go with, and frankly, I prefer the company of someone I can hold an intelligent conversation with," he explained naturally. Amelia's eyes widened. The Grand Charity Gala was the most exclusive event in New York City, gathering the crème de la crème of corporate society. "But sir, that kind of event, I don't think I fit in there." She hesitated, unconsciously glancing down at her simple attire. "Nonsense. You're worth more than all those show-offs combined," Alexander stated firmly. "Besides, you'd be doing me a huge favor. You know I despise these social obligations." The conversation was interrupted by Mark Johnson, Alexander's best friend and business partner, who entered the office without knocking. "Did you find a date for the gala yet? The press will be waiting to see who you arrive with," Mark said, before noticing the tension in the room. "Am I interrupting something?" "I just asked Amelia to accompany me," Alexander replied. Mark's spontaneous laugh echoed in the office. "Is that a joke? Alex, it's the event of the year. You could bring any supermodel or socialite, and you choose your assistant?" He added, "No offense, Amelia," throwing her a condescending glance. Alexander's face hardened. "It's not a joke, and I'd appreciate it if you respected my decision." Mark raised his hands in surrender, but his expression made it clear what he thought. He left the office, muttering something about calling later. "You don't have to do it out of pity," Amelia said. Once they were alone, "I perfectly understand my place." "It's not pity," Alexander insisted. "It's preference. After 5 years of working together, I think we deserve a night out of this office, don't you?" Amelia couldn't help but smile slightly. Alexander Vance, the genius behind Nexus Tech, one of the most important tech companies in the U.S., rarely showed that more human side. Since his divorce 3 years ago, he had become a reserved man, completely focused on work. "I'll think about it, sir," she finally replied. "Alexander," he corrected her. "If we're going together to that gala, I think we can drop the formalities, at least outside the office." "I'll think about it. Alexander," she said, feeling strange pronouncing his name. That same afternoon, as Amelia organized the next day's agenda, she received a message from Sophia, her best friend. "Is it true? Are you going to the gala with Alexander Vance? The whole office is buzzing about it." Amelia sighed. Rumors flew faster than light. She replied with a curt, "I haven't accepted yet," and continued working. At the end of the day, when most employees had already left, Amelia entered Alexander's office to drop off some documents. She found him looking out the window at the New York sunset. "I've decided to accept your invitation," she announced, surprising herself with her boldness. Alexander turned with a genuine smile. "I'm glad to hear that. It's next Saturday. I'll send a car to pick you up." "I can get there on my own," she quickly said. "I insist. It's the least I can do." Amelia nodded and headed towards the door, but Alexander's voice stopped her. "Amelia, thank you. It means a lot to me." She simply smiled and left, unaware that at that very moment, Caroline Thorne, Alexander's ex-wife and a prominent figure in New York's social circle, received a message with the news. Meanwhile, at an exclusive restaurant in Midtown, Peter and William, supposed friends of Alexander, commented on the unexpected news. "His assistant? Are you serious?" Peter scoffed. "I have to see this. He'll probably show up with some cheap dress and give us a spectacle to remember. William added, raising his glass. I bet you $1,000 it'll be a social disaster. Deal, Peter replied, though I almost feel sorry for Alex. After Caroline, it seems he's lost all style. What none of them knew was that this gala would change the course of many lives, especially Amelia's, who that night, in her small apartment in Brooklyn, looked at her closet in a panic, wondering what she had gotten herself into. What do you think is the biggest challenge Amelia will face at the gala? Share your thoughts in the comments. The transformation and the undercurrents. The doorbell of Sophia's small apartment rang insistently. When she opened it, she found Amelia with a desperate expression. I need urgent help, Amelia exclaimed, bursting in like a whirlwind. I accepted to go to the gala with Alexander, and now I don't know what to do. I have nothing to wear that's up to par. Sophia, an emerging fashion designer, looked at her friend with a growing smile. Relax. This is exactly what I've been waiting for years for, she said, taking her by the shoulders. Finally, I can make the world see the real Amelia Davies. I don't want to draw attention, Soph. I just want to not embarrass Alexander. Sophia shook her head as she searched for her sketchbook. That's your problem. You've always hidden yourself. It's time to shine, she declared, sketching rapidly. I have incredible fabric that I was saving for a special occasion. Champagne color with gold details. It will highlight your eyes and your skin. But I can't afford that. Who talked about paying? It'll be my gift. Or rather, an investment. When everyone sees my design at the event of the year, my career will take off. Meanwhile, at Nexus Tech's office, Alexander faced the consequences of his decision. So it's true? You're taking your assistant to the gala? Asked Richard Thompson, one of the shareholders, with a mocking tone. I thought it was a rumor. Amelia is more than my assistant. She's the most competent person I know, Alexander replied coldly. Sure, very competent. And that's all you saw in her, Richard insinuated with a malicious smile. Alexander visibly tensed. Be careful what you imply, Richard. I will not tolerate disrespect towards any member of my team. The conversation was interrupted by a message on Alexander's phone. It was from Caroline, his ex-wife. Seriously, Alex, your assistant? I thought you had better taste. Everyone's commenting on your new strategy to keep staff happy. Alexander deleted the message in anger. His marriage to Caroline had been a monumental mistake, but she still had influence in the social circles that mattered for business. That afternoon, at the end of the workday, Amelia noticed that several colleagues were looking at her and whispering. Brenda, from the marketing department, approached with false friendliness. So you won over the boss, huh? Well played, Amelia. Very well played. It's not what you think, Amelia replied, clenching her fists under the desk. It's just a professional event. Sure, professional. Anyway, enjoy your moment of fame. You never know how long it will last, Brenda said, walking away. With her morale at rock bottom, Amelia entered Alexander's office to hand him the day's last reports. I think we should cancel the gala, she blurted out without preamble. People are talking too much, and it could affect your reputation. Alexander, who was reviewing some documents, looked up in surprise. Since when do you care what people say? Since those comments can affect Nexus Tech. Your position as CEO, my position, is more than secure, he interrupted her. Or are you scared? The question left Amelia speechless for a moment. It's not fear. It's common sense. I don't belong in that world, Alexander. He stood up and walked towards her with a serious expression. Listen carefully. We're not going as boss and assistant. We're going as two people who respect each other and who, frankly, are tired of the appearances of that world. If there's one thing I've learned in these years, it's that those people's opinions are worth less than the paper these reports are printed on. Amelia felt a mixture of admiration and gratitude at his words. Are you sure? she asked softly. Completely. It'll be our little rebellion. Alexander smiled. You and I against all of them. 2 days later, an elegant package arrived at Amelia's apartment. Upon opening it, she discovered a velvet case with a diamond necklace and earrings. The card simply read, "To compliment your attire, a small thank you for 5 years of loyalty, AV." Amelia gazed at the jewels in amazement. She had never held anything so fine in her hands. Her first impulse was to return them, but she remembered Alexander's words about their little rebellion and smiled. That night, during the final dress fitting at Sophia's house, Amelia barely recognized herself in the mirror. "Is that me?" she asked incredulously, as Sophia adjusted the last details. "This is you without barriers, without fear," Sophia affirmed. "You've always been beautiful, Amy. You just hid behind those tailored suits and those glasses. Do you think I should take off my glasses too?" "For the gala, definitely. You have beautiful eyes. We'll use makeup to highlight them." The night before the big event, Amelia could barely sleep. She mentally reviewed the names of important guests, conversation topics, even etiquette rules she had frantically studied. Her phone vibrated with a message from Alexander. "Ready for our little revolution tomorrow?" She replied with a simple, "Ready," though her stomach was a knot of nerves. Miles away, in his luxurious penthouse, Alexander was also awake, looking at the city's illuminated skyline. For the first time in years, he felt genuine anticipation for a social event. He wondered what Amelia would look like outside her usual formal office attire. More importantly, he wondered why it mattered so much to him. What do you predict will happen when Amelia and Alexander arrive at the gala? Will the night be a triumph or a disaster? Tell us your thoughts in the comments. The grand revelation. Alexander consulted his watch for the 5th time while waiting in the lobby of the Grand Imperial Hotel. The ballroom on the top floor was already filled with guests, but he had insisted on waiting for Amelia at the entrance. Dressed in an impeccable black tuxedo and bow tie, he drew the attention of passers-by. "Alexander Vance waiting for someone. That's new," commented Peter, who arrived with William. "Where's your famous companion? She'll be here any moment," Alexander replied coldly. "Remember our bet," William whispered to Peter, not caring if Alexander heard them. $1,000. It'll be a disaster." Alexander was about to respond when he noticed both men looking towards the entrance with expressions of surprise. He turned slowly, and what he saw took his breath away. Amelia advanced with natural elegance, wearing a spectacular champagne-colored gown with gold details that perfectly fit her figure. The diamond necklace sparkled on her neck, and her hair, normally pulled back in an austere bun, fell in soft waves over her shoulders. Without her glasses, her stunning green eyes dominated a delicately made-up face. "Amelia," Alexander murmured, unable to hide his astonishment. She smiled shyly as she approached. "Do I look that different?" "Different isn't the word," he replied, regaining his composure. "You're spectacular." Peter and William remained open-mouthed, unable to associate this elegant and beautiful woman with the discreet assistant they knew. "I think you owe me $1,000, Alexander said to William with a triumphant smile, before offering his arm to Amelia. "Shall we go?" As they walked towards the elevators, Amelia asked, "What was that about the $1,000? "A silly bet between men," Alexander replied. "I'll tell you about it later." Upon entering the main ballroom, the effect was immediate. Conversations momentarily ceased, and dozens of gazes turned towards them. Alexander, accustomed to attention, guided Amelia confidently among the guests. "Everyone's looking at us," she whispered nervously. "They're looking at you," he corrected her. "And they're right to." The first hour passed between formal greetings and superficial conversations. To Alexander's surprise, Amelia handled each exchange with a natural grace that he had never noticed in the office. Her intelligence, which he had always valued, shone in every conversation. "Your assistant is full of surprises," commented Mark, who had approached during a moment when Amelia was conversing with other guests. "I never imagined this hidden behind those boring suits." "There's a lot about Amelia that we don't know," Alexander replied, observing her with new admiration. The evening unfolded perfectly until Caroline Thorne made her entrance, elegant as always, on the arm of a well-known businessman. She didn't take long to locate Alexander and head towards him with a calculating smile. "Alexander, darling, what a surprise to find you socializing," she said, with false sweetness, before examining Amelia from head to toe. "And this must be your assistant. A pleasure to meet you, isn't it? Amelia Davies," she introduced herself with serenity. "The pleasure is mine, Ms. Thorne." "Ms. Thorne," Caroline corrected. "Alexander and I decided to go our separate ways some time ago, you know. I always admire those who rise from such modest positions." The condescending tone was evident, but Amelia maintained her composure. "True modesty lies in recognizing the value of everyone, regardless of their position," she replied with a polite smile. Alexander suppressed a smile at Caroline's momentarily disconcerted expression. The orchestra began to play a waltz, and Alexander saw the perfect opportunity to leave. "If you'll excuse us, Caroline, I think it's time to dance," he said, gently taking Amelia's arm. On the dance floor, Amelia seemed uncertain. "I don't know how to waltz," she confessed softly. "Just follow me," he replied, guiding her gently. "It's easier than it looks." Soon they found a natural rhythm, moving elegantly among the other couples. For a moment, the rest of the world seemed to disappear as they spun to the music. "Thanks for rescuing me," Amelia said. "I think you were defending yourself quite well," he replied with admiration. The magic of the moment broke when Caroline, from the edge of the dance floor, raised her voice more than necessary. "Did you know Alexander has a weakness for rags-to-riches stories? His companion used to serve tables at the university cafeteria while studying. From the tray to high society, how inspiring." An uncomfortable silence spread across the ballroom. Amelia visibly tensed, and Alexander clenched his jaw with contained fury. To everyone's surprise, Amelia gently pulled away from Alexander and walked towards Caroline with a firm step. "It's true," she said in a clear voice that everyone could hear. "I worked as a waitress to pay for my studies. I also worked as a cashier at a supermarket and tutored math. I'm not ashamed of my past, Ms. Thorne. On the contrary, I'm proud to have gotten here on my own merits." A murmur of approval swept through the ballroom. Alexander approached, and to everyone's amazement, including Amelia's, took her hand before adding, "What few people know is that I also worked to pay for college," he revealed. "My first job was as a newspaper delivery boy. My second job was as a mechanic's assistant. Not everyone is born with a silver spoon, and those of us who have fought for our achievements know how to value them better." The silence that followed was broken by spontaneous applause. Caroline's face contorted into a grimace before she discreetly retreated. "I didn't know that about you," Amelia whispered when they returned to the dance floor. "There's a lot you don't know about me," he replied with an enigmatic smile. "Just like there's a lot I didn't know about you until tonight." Their gazes met with a new intensity, while the photographers present immortalized the moment that would be all over social media tomorrow. What do you think of Amelia's and Alexander's courage? And how will this public display impact their professional lives? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Navigating new dynamics. The Monday following the gala, the atmosphere in the Nexus Tech offices was noticeably different. Amelia, dressed in her usual gray tailored suit and glasses, felt the curious glances of her colleagues as she walked to her desk. "Good morning, Amelia," Brenda greeted her with an unusually kind tone. "You were spectacular at the gala. The photos online don't do you justice." "Thanks, Brenda," Amelia replied curtly, turning on her computer. Minutes later, Alexander walked out of his office and stopped in front of Amelia's desk. "Good morning," he said formally, though his eyes revealed a new complicity. "Could you come to my office? I need to discuss the preparations for the meeting with the Japanese investors." Once inside, he closed the door, and his expression relaxed. "Surviving the day after?" he asked with a smile. "Barely," she admitted. "It seems I'm visible to everyone now." "I told you you would be. By the way, did you read the Society column in the New York Times?" "I don't read those things," Amelia replied, uncomfortable. Alexander turned his monitor to show her an article titled "Cinderella of Silicon Alley." The main photo showed Amelia and Alexander dancing, with an expression on their faces that looked much more intimate than she remembered. "This is embarrassing," she murmured, adjusting her glasses. "I find it quite accurate," he commented. "The real news is that Sophia, your friend, has received 3 offers to design dresses after it was revealed that she created yours." "That's wonderful," Amelia exclaimed, genuinely happy. "She deserves it." "Now, about the Japanese," Alexander said, returning to professional mode. "I want you to come with me to the meeting, not as an assistant, but as part of the negotiation team." Amelia looked at him, surprised. "But I've never participated in—" "Exactly. It's time you started. You're too smart to remain just my assistant." 2 weeks later, Amelia accompanied Alexander to San Francisco for the meeting with the Japanese investors. The negotiation was a success, largely thanks to a cultural detail Amelia had researched that proved decisive. On the flight back, the atmosphere between them was relaxed and conspiratorial. "We should celebrate," Alexander suggested. "I know a small restaurant in the village that serves the best sushi in the city." The dinner was filled with laughter and conversations that had little to do with work. They discovered they shared a taste for the same music, historical documentaries, and had even read the same books. "It's funny," Amelia commented as they walked after dinner. "We've worked together for 5 years, and we're only just really getting to know each other." "Offices aren't the best place for genuine connections," he replied, accidentally brushing her hand. "Sometimes we need to step out of our usual roles to see what's always been there." The fleeting touch sent an electric current up Amelia's arm. Confused by these new sensations, she kept a certain distance the rest of the way. The next day, photos of their dinner appeared on a gossip blog. Nexus Tech Romance, Alexander Vance, and his assistant more than friends. "This has to stop," Amelia said, showing Alexander the article in his office. "They're distorting everything." "Does it matter so much what they say?" he asked with an unreadable expression. "My professional reputation matters to me," she replied. "Everything I've achieved could be overshadowed by this." Alexander nodded slowly. "I understand. We'll keep our relationship strictly professional in public." "In public and in private," Amelia clarified firmly. "We're colleagues, Alexander. We can't let this turn into something it's not." He looked at her intensely before replying. "Are you sure it's nothing?" Before she could answer, Mark burst into the office with a worried expression. "Alex, we have a problem. Stocks are falling. It seems there's a rumor about financial problems at the company." The next few days were a whirlwind of emergency meetings. Nexus Tech faced a crisis of market confidence, apparently initiated by anonymous rumors. Alexander and Amelia worked late into the night, trying to contain the damage. "Someone is leaking distorted information," Alexander said one night, rubbing his tired eyes. "This isn't a coincidence." Amelia, who was reviewing confidential documents, looked up. "I think I know who it might be," she said cautiously. I've noticed something strange. Caroline Thorne appears as a minority shareholder of Digital Edge, our direct competitor. Alexander approached to see the documents. Since when? For 3 weeks now, right after the gala. Their gazes met, understanding the implication. Caroline was using her contacts to harm Nexus Tech. We can't accuse her without proof, Amelia warned. Then we'll get proof, Alexander replied with determination. But I'll need your help, more than ever. They worked side by side for weeks, forming a perfect team. When they weren't in the office, they reviewed documents at Amelia's apartment or Alexander's house, sometimes forgetting the professional boundaries she had set. One night, exhausted after reviewing contracts for hours, Amelia fell asleep on Alexander's sofa. He watched her for a moment before covering her with a blanket, gently brushing her cheek with his fingers. The next morning, Amelia woke up confused. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee guided her to the kitchen, where Alexander was preparing breakfast. "How long did I sleep?" she asked, embarrassed. "About 5 hours," he replied, offering her a cup. "You needed it." "This isn't right," she said, taking the coffee. "People will talk if they know I spent the night here. Are you still worried about what others think?" "I'm worried about my career, Alexander. Everything I've built with so much effort." Alexander looked at her intensely. "And what about what we're building together?" The question hung between them, loaded with unspoken meanings. Before Amelia could answer, her phone rang. It was Mark, with urgent news about the crisis. The pending conversation would have to wait. A new path, a deeper bond. The Nexus Tech boardroom had become a crisis operations center. Graphs of falling stocks covered the walls, and the management team showed worried faces. "Losses already amount to 15% of the total value," Mark reported, pointing to the main screen. "If this continues for another week, majority investors could demand changes in leadership." Alexander remained impassive, though Amelia noticed how he clenched his jaw slightly, a gesture only she recognized as a sign of his internal tension. "Have we identified the source of the leak?" Alexander asked. "Not with certainty yet," replied David, head of cybersecurity. "But the rumors seem to originate from circles close to the board of directors." Everyone exchanged uncomfortable glances. The betrayal came from within. "I want you to review all confidential information accesses from the last 2 months," Alexander ordered, "and I need an effective communication plan by first thing tomorrow morning." When the meeting ended, Alexander asked Amelia to stay. He waited for everyone to leave before speaking. "I need you to do something sensitive," he said softly. "Review Mark's emails." Amelia looked at him, surprised. "You suspect Mark? He's your friend from college." "Precisely why I can ask you this," Alexander explained. "If he's innocent, no one will know. If he's involved, I need to be sure." "Alexander, this is—" "I know," he interrupted her. "I wouldn't ask you if I had another option. I trust you more than anyone." That same afternoon, working discreetly with the IT team, Amelia discovered a series of emails between Mark and Caroline Thorne. The suspicions were correct. Mark was leaking information, manipulated by Caroline, with a mixture of professional promises and apparently something personal. With a heavy heart, Amelia presented the evidence to Alexander in his office. "I'm sorry," she said, handing him the folder with the printouts. "You were right." Alexander reviewed the documents in silence, his expression hardening with each page. 13 years of friendship," he murmured finally. "And he betrays me for her." "The emails suggest Caroline promised him a position at Digital Edge," Amelia added. "But there's also something personal between them." Alexander closed the folder with a tired gesture. "I always knew he felt something for Caroline, even during our marriage. I never thought it would come to this." He stood up and looked out the window at the urban skyline of New York City, now illuminated by the sunset. "What will you do?" Amelia asked, approaching. "What I have to do," he replied. "Confront him, dismiss him, and proceed legally. The company comes first. And your friendship? It died the moment he decided to betray me." Amelia placed a hand on his shoulder in an instinctive gesture of comfort. Alexander turned, and for a moment, they were dangerously close. Their gazes met with an intensity that neither tried to hide. "Amelia, No," she interrupted him, stepping back. "It's not the time. There's too much at stake." "There will always be something at stake," he replied. "The company, your career, my position. But there are things we can't keep ignoring." "Precisely why we must be rational," Amelia insisted. "Let's save Nexus Tech first. Afterwards, we'll talk about the rest." Alexander nodded, respecting her decision. The following days were intense. Mark was confronted with the evidence and, after a heated discussion, admitted his involvement. He was dismissed immediately, and legal action was initiated against both him and Caroline Thorne for corporate espionage. The news shook the entire company, but the communication team managed the crisis masterfully, presenting it as a decisive internal cleanup. Gradually, stocks began to stabilize. Alexander and Amelia barely had time to rest, working almost 24 hours to regain investor confidence. Their professional synchronicity was perfect, complementing each other in every decision and strategy. One night, while reviewing the latest financial reports in Alexander's office, accumulated fatigue led them to a more personal conversation. "You know what's ironic?" Alexander said, leaning back in his chair. "In the midst of this crisis, I've never felt more sure of my decisions, because I have you by my side." Amelia looked up from the documents, surprised by the confession. "We work well together," she replied cautiously. "It's more than that, and you know it," he affirmed, holding her gaze. "What we have goes beyond professional, Amelia. I think it's time to admit it." The silence that followed seemed to amplify the accelerated beating of Amelia's heart. "Admitting it would complicate everything," she finally said. "What would happen to my position here, to everything I've worked to build? There's already enough gossip about us." "Is that what worries you? What others say?" "I'm worried about being seen as someone who advanced because of being with you, not because of my merits," she confessed. "I'm worried about losing the respect I've worked so hard to earn." Alexander stood up and walked to her side. "No one who truly knows you would think that. The business world isn't fair, Alexander, especially with women." The tension between them was palpable. Finally, Alexander returned to his seat, respecting the space she needed. "What do you propose, then?" Amelia took a deep breath before replying. "I think we need distance. Professional, at least for a while." "What exactly does that mean?" "I'm going to request a transfer to the International Business Development Department," she explained. "It's an opportunity to grow professionally and to clarify what we feel without the daily pressure of working so closely." Alexander looked at her for a long moment, processing her words. "If it's what you really want, I won't object," he finally said. "But I want you to know something. My feelings won't change no matter what department you work in." The next day, Amelia formally submitted her transfer request. In less than a week, it was approved, and she began her new position on the 15th floor, 2 floors below Alexander's office. The physical distance helped calm the rumors, but it didn't diminish what they both felt. They saw each other in general meetings and occasionally ran into each other in the hallways, maintaining a professional cordiality that barely hid the underlying tension. Nexus Tech slowly began to recover from the crisis. Stocks rose again, and investor confidence gradually restored. Amelia's work in her new department was exceptional, quickly earning the respect of her new team on her own merit. A month after her transfer, She received a job offer from a competing company with a considerably higher salary. That night, as she contemplated the offer in her apartment, her phone rang. It was Alexander. "I heard about the offer," he said without preamble. "Are you going to accept it?" Amelia sighed. News traveled fast in the corporate world. "I haven't decided yet," she replied sincerely. "I understand if you want to leave," he said with a restrained voice. "But I want you to know that Nexus Tech wouldn't be the same without you. I wouldn't be the same without you." The call ended shortly after, leaving Amelia with more doubts than certainties. The gala, the proposal, the future. 6 months had passed since the financial crisis. Nexus Tech had not only recovered, but had emerged stronger, with new projects and a revamped corporate structure. The date coincidentally coincided with the anniversary of the famous gala that had changed so many lives. Amelia, now Director of International Business Development, had rejected the competitor's offer and built her own team within Nexus Tech. Her office on the 15th floor reflected her new status: spacious, elegant, and with a city view. This morning, however, her mind wasn't on the contracts on her desk, but on the message she had received. Mandatory general meeting at 6 p.m. Corporate Terrace. "Do you know what the meeting is about?" she asked Clara, her assistant, who entered with some documents. "They say it's something big," Clara replied enthusiastically. "The event team has been preparing the terrace since yesterday." At 5:45 p.m., Amelia went up to the building's terrace. She was surprised to find it completely transformed. Soft lights, white and gold flowers, and a small stage with the orchestra she vividly remembered from the charity gala. Employees began to arrive, all equally confused and amazed by the decorations. At 6 o'clock p.m. sharp, Alexander appeared on stage, elegant in a navy blue suit. "Thank you all for coming," he began. "Today we celebrate not only the complete recovery of Nexus Tech, but something much more important: the strength of teamwork and the integrity that defines our company." His gaze found Amelia among the crowd before he continued. "Exactly 1 year ago, I attended a gala that changed my perspective on many things. Today, I want to officially announce that Nexus Tech is entering a new era." He proceeded to explain the complete restructuring of the company, including new social projects and a renewed commitment to diversity and inclusion. "And now I have a special surprise," he added. "I'd like to invite the person who made much of our recovery possible, our Director of International Development, Amelia Davies, to the stage." Disconcerted, Amelia walked towards the stage amidst applause. Alexander handed her a microphone. "Amelia, would you mind sharing with everyone the details of Nexus Tech's new scholarship program for young people from vulnerable communities?" Amelia looked at him, confused. "But that program hasn't been approved by the board of directors yet." Alexander smiled. "It was approved this morning. All funds allocated just as you proposed. Please, share your vision with the team." With growing confidence, Amelia explained the program she had secretly designed for months. Full scholarships for low-income tech students with guaranteed internships at Nexus Tech. This program will not only benefit these young people, but it will bring fresh and diverse talent to our company, she concluded. True innovation comes from diversity of perspectives. The applause was enthusiastic. Alexander took the microphone again, thanking everyone and declaring the celebration officially started. The orchestra began to play as employees enjoyed the party. As Amelia tried to mingle with the crowd, she felt a hand on her arm. "Can we talk?" Alexander asked. In private, he led her to a secluded section of the terrace, decorated exactly like the corner where they had shared their first dance a year ago. "How did you know about the scholarship program?" Amelia asked. It was confidential. Mark told me, Alexander replied. Mark? She exclaimed, surprised. You talked to him after what he did? He came to see me a month ago. He apologized. He explained that Caroline had manipulated him completely. It doesn't justify his actions, but at least he had the courage to face me, Alexander explained. During our conversation, he mentioned something interesting, that you rejected 3 job offers with better salaries in the last few months. Amelia looked away towards the illuminated city. Not everything is about money. He also told me that you've been using part of your annual bonus to anonymously fund studies for young people from your old neighborhood. That was personal, she murmured. Why would he tell you something like that? Because, despite everything, he knows how I feel about you, Alexander replied simply. And he wanted me to know who you really are, although I already knew. The silence between them was charged with contained emotions. The music softly reached their private corner. Do you remember the last time we danced? He asked, extending his hand. How could I forget? Caroline almost ruined the night. And you saved it with your honesty. Alexander smiled. Would you grant me this dance, Director Davies? Amelia accepted his hand, and they began to move to the rhythm of the music. You know people will talk if they see us, she warned. Let them talk. I don't care anymore. Me neither, Amelia admitted, surprising herself. These months apart have taught me something important. I've managed to earn respect for my work, independently of you. I'm no longer afraid of what others think. Alexander stopped, looking at her intensely. I've missed you every day, he confessed, not just as my assistant or as my colleague. I've missed you, Amelia. I've missed you too, she replied softly. So, what's stopping us now? Nothing, Amelia smiled. Absolutely nothing. Alexander delicately took her face in his hands and kissed her under the starry New York City sky, while in the distance, Nexus Tech employees watched the scene with knowing smiles. I have a proposal for you, Alexander said when they parted. Not as your boss, but as the man who fell in love with the woman behind the efficient assistant. I'm listening, she replied, her heart racing. I want us to form a professional and personal partnership. Your intelligence and my vision. Your heart and my determination. Together we could make Nexus Tech not only a successful company, but one that truly positively impacts society. Are you proposing a corporate merger or something more? Amelia joked. Both, he smiled. Let's start with the personal, and let the professional follow its natural course. I accept the proposal, she replied, sealing the agreement with another kiss. At that moment, the music changed to the same waltz they had danced a year ago. Without words, they began to dance again, this time without fear of the eyes watching them, without worrying about rumors or appearances. As they spun under the stars, Alexander whispered, I'll always be grateful that I mustered the courage to invite you to that gala. And I'll always be grateful that I had the courage to accept, Amelia replied, remembering the shy assistant she had been and marveling at the journey they had taken. From a distance, Nexus Tech employees watched the couple who had transformed the company, unaware that they were witnessing the beginning of a story that would leave a mark far beyond corporate limits, a legacy of impact. 1 year later, the auditorium of New York University was completely packed. Students, professors, and prominent figures from the business world had gathered for the official inauguration of the Vance Davies Foundation, a project that had generated expectations since its announcement. Amelia, elegant in a cream-colored tailored suit, watched from the side of the stage as Alexander presented the foundation's mission. Technology cannot continue to be a privilege, he declared passionately. It must be a tool for social transformation, accessible to everyone, regardless of their background or economic situation. From her position, Amelia couldn't help but feel proud. The last year had been a roller coaster of emotions and professional achievements. Her relationship with Alexander had flourished parallel to their joint projects, demonstrating that love and work could coexist harmoniously when based on mutual respect. And now, Alexander continued, I'd like to invite the true architect of this foundation, my partner and companion, Amelia Davies, to the stage. Applause filled the auditorium as Amelia walked onto the stage. Taking the microphone, she spotted a group of young people in the front row wearing t-shirts with the foundation's logo. The first 20 scholarship recipients of the program. When I was a student at this very university, she began, I worked as a waitress to pay for my studies. Many of my equally brilliant classmates had to drop out due to lack of resources. Today, with this foundation, we want to ensure that no talent is lost for economic reasons. Among the audience, Amelia recognized Sophia, now a renowned designer whose dress for that crucial night had launched her career. Mark was also there, who, after a difficult process, had found redemption working for the foundation, using his contacts to open doors that benefited the students. At the end of the presentation, the first scholarship recipients came up to the stage. Among them stood out Sarah, a 19-year-old whose artificial intelligence project applied to preventive medicine had impressed the evaluation committee. Sarah reminds me a lot of you, Alexander whispered to Amelia as they watched the young woman explain her project. The same determination, the same spark in her eyes. But she'll have a less difficult path, Amelia replied with satisfaction. After the official ceremony during the reception, Sophia approached the couple. From invisible assistant to foundation director, she commented, hugging her friend. Who would have imagined it that night when you burst into my apartment in despair? All thanks to your magic dress, Amelia joked. It wasn't the dress, Alexander interjected. The dress only showed what was always there. Mark joined the conversation, still with some discomfort, but determined to repair the damage caused. Investors are delighted with the initiative, he reported. 3 more want to join the mentoring program. Alexander nodded gratefully. His friendship with Mark would never be the same, but both had found a new balance based on respect and redemption. When the guests began to leave, Alexander led Amelia to the building's terrace. The sunset bathed University Heights in a golden light. Remember that night on the Nexus Tech terrace? He asked, hugging her from behind. How could I forget? Amelia smiled. The night we finally stopped pretending we were just colleagues. I have something for you, Alexander said, handing her a small velvet box. Another anniversary of that first time we danced. Inside was a delicate ring with a sapphire surrounded by small diamonds. Alexander, it's not a proposal, he clarified with a smile. It's a promise that we will continue building together, step by step. Amelia turned to look at him with tears in her eyes. I have something to tell you too, she said. Something that will change our plans for next year. Alexander looked at her expectantly. I'm pregnant, Amelia announced. We're going to have a baby. Alexander's expression changed from astonishment to pure joy. He hugged her carefully, as if she were suddenly something fragile and precious. A family, he murmured against her hair. Our own family. They stood there, embracing in silence, contemplating the city skyline where both had struggled, suffered, and finally found their way together. You know what's most incredible, Amelia mused, that it all started with an invitation to a gala. A simple decision that changed our lives. The best decision I've ever made, Alexander replied. As the sun finished setting, Amelia thought about that insecure assistant with glasses who trembled at the idea of attending a high society event. about how a dress, a dance, and the courage to be authentic had unleashed a transformation that went far beyond the personal. "Shall we dance?" Alexander asked, extending his hand just like that first time. With no music but the wind among the campus trees, they danced slowly, celebrating not only their love, but the legacy they were building together. A legacy that, like their story, had begun with a dance step and now extended to future generations. From a distance, Sophia and the other scholarship recipients watched the couple with admiration, unaware that they were witnessing not just a moment of love, but the living symbol that social barriers, prejudices, and appearances can be broken down when one has the courage to show who they truly are. The lonely millionaire and his assistant had definitely left everyone speechless. What a truly inspiring journey. This story of Amelia and Alexander shows us that authenticity, courage, and genuine connection can overcome any social barrier and lead to a life far richer than one built on appearances. If this story moved you, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs a dose of hope. And for more incredible tales of transformation, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell.